Breaking news tonight. Diddy jelly. Apparently, Sean Combs explodes when assassin Luigi Mangione arrives. A Diddy tantrum. He's refusing to leave his cell after he hears for the first time in life, N-O. Jailhouse guards saying no to his demands. As we learn Diddy sex trolls scoping crowds for sex victims during parties. This as damning Diddy documentaries hit the airwaves. Who's taking notes? The feds. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
A frenzy of documentaries purporting to tell the real story of P. Diddy as the infamous rapper and music mogul sits behind bars.
Instead of sitting in his cell, sulking and pouting and antagonizing the guards and whining about Luigi Mangione, the healthcare boss assassin, getting all the attention and being crowned king of the jail cell, instead of that, he needs to tell his lawyer to put a sock in it, because that lawyer, Agnefello, just tipped his hand about one direction in which the defense is going. Again, that was from our friend Harvey Levin over at TMZ, their doc, The Downfall of Diddy. And it's free on Tubi, feds. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. As a former fed, okay, they give you no money, all right, to prosecute your case. You can get all those witnesses' names for free. So what does this mean? Joining me an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning right now from all of the documentaries, but let's just take a peek at one more.
Disturbing video that shows Sean Diddy Combs kicking, shoving, and dragging his ex-girlfriend.
She was scared of him.
I think so.
Were you scared of him?
Yeah. My sense was that everybody around him was afraid of him.
Afraid of Sean Combs?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's explosive.
Diddy's Downfall, now streaming on Hulu.
And another one. That's from our friends at ABC, Diddy's Downfall. Nightline jumping in on it. Again, with me, an all-star panel. I want to go first to long-time investigator and now colleague Chris McDonough, director Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, worked over 300 homicides. Weren't you also Vice at one point, Chris?
Yes, I was, Nancy. Yep. I worked Vice for about 2 years.
I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, this is where I found him after his 25-year career in LE law enforcement. He is a star of a YouTube channel, The Interview Room. Chris, how hard did we have to beat the streets to find witnesses? Talk about a polar vortex. I remember being out on the street, literally banging on doors with my investigator, trying to find witnesses. Of course, they could see us coming a mile away, pulling up in our Crown Vic. Nobody would come to the door, but we had to try, right? The feds could just sit back and watch all these documentaries. And by the way, Kayla Brantley, Daily Mail, I'm talking about you, girl, and your podcast, The Trial of Diddy. But Chris McDonough, they're getting witnesses handed over on a silver platter with all of these documentaries. Hey, I wonder if Diddy's getting Hulu behind bars.
You know, Nancy, we talked about this on your show multiple times, man, as you've been covering this case. The problem here that he has, and you projected it, that it was coming, his ego is so big, and he's what we would call a power assertive offender. And he can't control it, but it goes to show you how much intimidation factor he had into that ego, where he could control all of these people until he was locked up.
Wendy Patrick joining me, high-profile California prosecutor, president, founder, Black Swan Verdicts, author of Why Bad Looks Good, second book, reading people, how to understand people and predict their behavior. I like that one. You've got so many books. I don't have time to talk about all of them, Wendy, but thank you for being with us. Wendy, what is Agnefello doing? I mean, I know Combs has added on to his defense team, but cardinal rule. And, here's a high-profile lawyer that never says a word, Ben Brofman. If I were in trouble, I would hire him. He's a street fighter, but he never speaks to the press, right? It's the first thing that the elected district attorney told me once I got my own courtroom. Don't talk to the press about your cases. He said it in a nice way, but that's you're shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. With all of these docs, and he keeps talking, he's giving away, he's tipping his hand on what the defense will be.
You know, we always used to say a closed mouth gathers no foot. And that is a great idea and mantra to live by when, in fact, you're on the defense side of a case that's so high profile, or even, Nancy, when you're the prosecutor and you want to make sure that the case is tried with integrity in a courtroom, not in the court of public opinion. But when you have such a high profile client, and I used to be a criminal defense decades ago, but that's the type of thing that you have to be very careful about, because everyone's looking and with much curiosity about what the defense is going to be. What could it possibly be? If the prosecution is patterns make the predator, well, then it's almost very difficult to try to figure out how do you best counter all of that evidence. And like you say, more every day, all you have to do is watch these free YouTube channels. How are you going to counter that? And if you have a plan, it's probably not the wisest thing to say it in public, even though the court of public opinion, unfortunately, expects something from the defense. That's the balance.
And, you know, I heard Agnefello blurt out, I can't keep him off the stand. Okay, I don't want to help out Diddy because the evidence is mounting against him. So who am I supposed to believe? All these women or him? Okay. But putting Sean Combs on the stand would be a prosecutor's dream come true. Dream come true. Go on, Agnefello. Go ahead and put him on the stand. Although I don't know that Agnefello can stand up to Sean Combs in court. Combs might take the stand over Agnefello's advice. That said, is Diddy jelly? Apparently, Sean Combs jealous after the healthcare assassin Luigi Mangione. No love lost between me and Mangione. But that said, he's angry that Mangione has apparently been crowned Miss Sweet Potato Queen at the MDC. Listen.
Reports from sources inside Metropolitan Center say Diddy is furious that alleged CEO murderer Luigi Mangione is getting more attention behind bars. Diddy has allegedly been throwing tantrums, claiming he is innocent of sex trafficking, yet he continues getting so much hate inside the lockup, while Luigi gets so much love. Reports say prisoners apparently love Mangione, giving him support and sharing their stories of losing loved ones due to inadequate health care.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Which bad guy do I love the most? That's what's happening behind bars. Are you kidding? Joining me, reporter at large for thedailymail.com, also host of a brand new podcast that's hitting the charts, The Trial of Diddy, Kayla Brantley. Is this real? Actually, at first I thought, no, somebody made that up. But I can actually see Sean Combs angry he's not the king of the cell block anymore.
I mean, this is the crossover event of the century at the MDC. You have Diddy and Luigi Mangione locked up together. Our sources say that they haven't quite met yet, though they do share a legal team, but that Diddy is absolutely furious that he's been throwing tantrums. And if anything, this just goes to show his inflated ego and how he feels, you know, he has the name Love, that he should be loved and adored. Meanwhile, Luigi allegedly shot someone in cold blood on camera. So to Diddy, he doesn't get it. He's saying, you know, I am innocent, yet you have this guy allegedly on camera killing somebody. How is he being revered as a hero and Diddy's a villain?
I'm just curious why the New York control room keeps showing shots of Luigi Mangione without his shirt on. Because when I look at Mangione, I see the devil. Oh, thank you. You did it again. I see the devil. I see the devil. But apparently, other people think he's sexy. Okay? I guess it's all based on your particular taste. To Lynn Shaw joining me, founder, executive director, Lynn's Warriors, who's having none of this. Lynn's Warriors is dedicated to eradicating sex trafficking and the abuse of sex victims. Also host of Lynn's Warriors on YouTube. Lynn Shaw, thank you for being with us. What about this? A celebrity hair fight behind bars between Sean Combs and Luigi Mangione? Is Diddy jelly? What? I've never heard anything like it in my life, but apparently that's the word.
That's the word I'm hearing also, but I have to tell you, Nancy, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with this whole thing. Boo-hoo-hoo. This dirty Diddy hot dog on a bun in a jail cell, that's a lot more food than victims and survivors we work with get served on a daily basis. And as far as Luigi, another distraction because I live right down the street from where that horrible event took place. And you know what? An hour later, people were just walking over the spot in New York City. And this is what we're talking about and celebrating. How about the focus? I ultimately believe this Diddy case will come down to, it's going to be very tough, children, minors. Were they brought over state lines? Sex trafficking. So that's where I think everybody should be going in and really trying to find victims' voices and hear their stories. I realize everybody's coming out of the woodwork right now, but a little too late. However, I think that's the angle. Why? Why did everybody wait decades? What can you imagine if one of these women came forward very quietly and tried? Now they did. There were a couple of cases they did say they tried. Nobody would listen to them. Why? Why can't we switch that up and go in and find kids? Because so many have told me over the decades about dirty Diddy and still nobody did anything about it. I ask why now?
Please. I can tell you why, Lynn Shaw. I know this may be hard for a lot of people to believe, but I didn't speak out when I was a prosecutor about a judge that hit on me over and over and over. He walked me to my car one night and actually kissed me right on the mouth. I'm like, oh. Did I complain?
Didn't slap him?
I mean, I immediately jumped in my car, went bye, and left and avoided him as much as I could. But I feared for my cases. I feared for my cases that if I complained, other judges that were his friends would hold that against me and take it out on my victims. So I figured one kiss on the lips, that's a small price to pay for not worrying every time I struck a jury. Is it right? HELLNO, it's not right.
I mean, I get it.
But
I get
still,
it. But Nancy,
the fear was
no.
very much alive in me that somehow my victims would suffer.
Yeah, but Nancy, in the wake of the last couple of years and the Me Too movement, we should have heard something a little bit more before this Cassie Ventura video came out. I mean, I had women, but I didn't have proof about any of this, that this was actually happening. So I couldn't step forward. I urged them and they would not do it. And I'm going back again to Harvey Weinstein when all of that was breaking open and they still wouldn't come forward. But if we had just one victim that would have come forward, I have to ask again, it's very easy right now for everybody to create specials and cash in on the Dirty Diddy story. But where were they when all this was going on? I remain, if we don't change the way we think about victims, survivors, we are not going to get anywhere. And if this guy gets away with this, I don't know. Victims and survivors will never, ever come forward because they will see when somebody has power and money and attention like this, they don't matter.
Sean Diddy Combs may be feeling forgotten behind bars. The mogul's holidays have been described as bleak, with equally dismal holiday meals to match, including a steak and cheese sub served on a hot dog bun. And now Combs isn't even the most high-profile inmate at the MDC. Combs reportedly reeling over the Support Inmates Show CEO killer Luigi Mangione, while he's been shunned over federal sex trafficking allegations.
Sean Combs unhappy with newfound attention garnered by suspected CEO killer Luigi Mangione? Whispers from inside the MDC.
Not necessarily whispers anymore. It's full out being stated and reported that Sean Combs is jealous over Luigi Mangione. Okay, I don't care about that, but I find it really interesting that he's having his sulky, pouty stunts where he refuses to come out of his jail because he's angry. Okay, listen to this.
Sean Diddy Combs may be feeling forgotten behind bars. The mogul's holidays have been described as bleak, with equally dismal holiday meals to match, including a steak and cheese sub served on a hot dog bun. And now Combs isn't even the most high-profile inmate at the MDC. Combs reportedly reeling over the Support Inmates Show CEO killer Luigi Mangione, while he's been shunned over federal sex trafficking allegations.
What is wrong with investigative reporter Dave Mack from crimeonline.com? He just said Combs' twins went to a casual yacht trip to St. Bart's. Casual? What? Okay. Let me go straight out to special guest joining us, Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, former associate warden at Brooklyn's MDC, Metropolitan Detention Center. He is the author of Who Are You? See It, Say It, Seize It. And he's got a website, guys, newdaylightfoundation.com. Dr. Hendricks, thank you for joining us. There's so much more to your CV, but I got to get to Diddy. I can't read 3 pages of all of your accomplishments. Dr. Hendricks, did you hear that the wardens finally told Sean Combs the dreaded N.O.? They got tired of his stunts and he had a meltdown. Hey, listen, Dr. Hendricks.
Sources from the MDC claim Combs had a meltdown in prison over the holidays, distraught that he remains behind bars. A panicked Combs reportedly begged guards to take him to the prison hospital, claiming he was having a breakdown. Inmates say when guards refused his request, the rapper spent several hours using meditation techniques to calm himself down. Observers at recent court hearings say prison and meal refusals appear to be taking a toll on Combs, who looks astonishingly thinner and grayer.
Again, all I can say is, of course he's thinner and grayer. That's because he doesn't have a private chef cooking every meal for him. Don't you recall a PR guru that joined us a few weeks ago stated that Sean Combs would demand cheesecake at 4 a.m. and get it? And I mean, that was just a tiny example. Of course he's thinner. He's having to eat 3 regular meals like the rest of us, and he's not being served on a silver platter. And boo-hoo, Killa Brantley, his gray is showing. That's because he's not having a weekly touch-up with his private hairdresser. Am I supposed to feel bad about that, Killa?
Well, Nancy, he's innocent until proven guilty. So, no, you don't have to feel bad.
Put her up, please. Please put her up. I like you, and I respect your podcast, and I respect how much work and research you put into every single article, podcast appearance. But I didn't ask you that. Of course, it goes without saying, Sean Combs is presumed, he is innocent. Not just presumed, he is innocent until he has been proven guilty in a court of law before a jury of his peers. That standard is very high in a criminal case. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. What is a reasonable doubt, Killa Brantley? It is not a mathematical certainty such as 2 and 2 equals 4, but it is not an improbability. It is a probability, a doubt based on reason. That's the only thing the state has to avoid. So, of course he's innocent until proven guilty. I asked you, why are people making a big deal about him being thinner and grayer?
Well, I think there's just so much attention on this case, and people are so curious about how someone's lifestyle can just go from being, at the peak, the pinnacle, you have everything, you have luxury, to then going completely to bottom of the barrel. So for any random Joe Schmo who gets locked up, no, eating these 3 regular subpar meals a day is nothing. But the interest is there.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Hold on, little girl. Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, I do not call steak on a bun subpar.
It's not caviar.
I wish somebody would give me steak on a bun. What about it, Hendricks?
Well, apparently they must have run out of cheesesteak sub buns and they're putting the meat on the hot dog bun. He just needs to eat his meal and keep quiet. In terms of him not wanting to come out, well, in terms of him having a meltdown and telling the staff that he wants to go to the hospital, I can tell you we used to send inmates to the hospital for hangnails. So apparently he's just trying to get out of the institution. and they're just having no parts of it. There's an old saying in prison: if you mind your own, you live long. So he needs to stop worrying about Luigi Mangione and get focused on his particular case. Because I'm also hearing that he's refusing to leave the cell to come down to the visiting room to be served these additional lawsuits. And it's not going to stop anything. It's just going to delay it a little bit. But he needs to get focused on what he needs to do to fight for his freedom and fight these allegations. But the more he acts up, the more he panders, and the more he cries, he just appears to be guilty. And I know he's got to be proven guilty in the court of law, but his actions are very diva-like, and it's not winning him any friends in that institution or any other future institution that he may find himself in the future.
And you know what's interesting? Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, a former associate warden at MDC, where Combs is housed, in addition to that, and being a doctor and an author, I guess you're also clairvoyant. Listen.
In addition to refusing meals, there are reports that Sean Diddy Combs refuses to leave his cell in order to avoid being served with more lawsuits. Attorney Tony Busby says Combs' refusal to accept service in 2 cases has caused significant delays, resulting in canceled hearings. With 3 new accusers filing in the last 3 weeks, the mogul is now facing 41 individual lawsuits, all but one alleging sexual assault.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app, where you can get all of our content, where we, in our own way, seek justice.
Diddy's latest court hearing reveals the rapper appearing thinner and grayer as he awaits his 2025 trial for sex trafficking charges.
Boo-hoo, no private chef. Back to Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, former associate warden at MDC, Metropolitan Detention Center, where Combs is housed, and to his chagrin, Luigi Mangione, the alleged healthcare assassin, who many people are saying he's a new hot felon, blah, blah. Okay, back to you, Dr. Hendricks. There is a certain honor among thieves, let me just put it euphemistically, where inmates stick together, unless they're offered a sweet deal from prosecutors. But when the inmates turn on you, you're up the creek without a paddle. I wonder, when Combs first came, whether the inmates were starstruck. Okay, I mean, this is a multi-millionaire, some people claim billionaire, who everybody's heard of. But then after a while, the honeymoon is over, and his constant antics and whining, demanding a tablet, wanting special food, every other day wanting to go to the sick ward, angry and sulking that he's not already out of jail, that wears pretty thin on everyone around you. What about it, Dr. Hendricks?
You're absolutely correct. And in terms of inmates being starstruck, that may have lasted 5 minutes, because after that, inmates could give a rat's nostril about your status, other than the fact that what they can get out of you. So unfortunately, he'll probably be extorted at some point if he's not already. And if he's causing any issues or concerns, sometimes they'll ask the staff to get them off the unit, or they'll say, hey, he's got to go, or something may happen to him. So he right now, I'm assuming he's probably in a unit with inmates that are probably not violent in nature. But at some point, if he is convicted of these crimes and he goes to a prison, if he carries this behavior with him where he may end up going, he's going to have a really hard time surviving. Because again, if he's convicted, these victims will receive a large payout, and I don't know how much money he'll have left over to pay for protection, because he's not gang affiliated or anything like that. Because again, he's painting himself as a CEO and as someone as a businessman. So he's going to have to pick his path. And right now, the way he's behaving is not going to look very well for him in the future.
You know, you said something earlier, Dr. Hendricks, about his refusing to come out of his cell and sulking in there as being a delay tactic so he can't get served lawsuits on other cases that are mounting. How do you do that behind bars? I mean, can't they just hand you the documents in your jail cell?
No, Nancy. Each state has rules on process serving, and as far as in the prison setting, as long as the process server follows the rules for visitation of the institution, because no inmate has, they can refuse to come to a visit, whether it's his family, friends, or associates. So he does not have to leave his unit to come down to the visiting room. However, once the process servers have done all that they can do and they went through that process, obviously we know he has a team of attorneys retained. So at this point, they're probably going to serve his legal team. And I think I know there'll be a little bit of a delay in terms of the process of the lawsuit, but at some point, his legal team will be served these papers, and these lawsuits will move forward without him officially being served behind bars.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.
A frenzy of documentaries purporting to tell the real story of P. Diddy as the infamous rapper and music mogul sits behind bars.
When Diddy, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Puff, Love, was first arrested and the federal indictment was revealed, we all discussed the possibility that cohorts, aka friends, would have the choice to either turn co-defendant, witness, unnamed conspirator. Well, it's all come true. Listen.
As many predicted, it appears Sean Combs' inner circle is turning against him. In upcoming Peacock documentary, The Making of a Bad Boy, a former makeup artist, intern, bodyguard, and both childhood and industry friends are recounting Diddy's eyebrow-raising behavior. Many of the associates interviewed for the doc chose to remain anonymous, including a man who claims underage women were frequently in attendance at parties where red lights came on to indicate sex was happening.
Wait a minute. Kayla Brantley joining me, investigative reporter at large with the biggest website apparently in the world, dailymail.com, and star of the Trial of Diddy podcast. Kayla, again, thank you for being with us. What? Everybody knew? I hated that when I would be working up a case and I'd be talking to the witness and they'd say, well, everybody knows. Everybody knows is not admissible in court. Just because everybody knows it doesn't mean I can bring it in front of a jury. But what is this? Everybody knows that when Sean Combs would turn on a red light, he was having sex and to stay away?
Nancy, I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it many times again. This was all an open secret in Hollywood. You hear everyone coming out saying, oh yeah, Diddy's parties were crazy. They used to say it at the time. You know, there are videos that have come up of people saying, oh, you know what happens at Diddy parties. So it was all there in front of us. It's just now when there's finally an indictment that it's coming in the legal form. So like you're seeing in these documentaries, they are with unidentified people. One woman, she said that they said they could ship me off and sell me to anyone. And then you have this other unidentified man coming forward saying, if the red light's on, that means there's sex happening with Diddy and there are underage girls. So again, if these claims are true, Diddy did not act alone.
I am telling you what, Wendy Patrick, prosecutor, author, star of Today with Dr. Wendy, KCBQ San Diego. Wendy, I know a lot of people have a prurient interest in what we're talking about. I see it all as evidence. I can't help it. That's how I'm programmed now. What juror that has a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, a wife, is going to sit by and hear evidence that Diddy would actually turn on a red light for people to see, to warn them away that he was having sex purportedly with a minor? I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah, Nancy, this is the going to be the brutal reality of finally moving this very sordid tale into a court of law instead of trying it in the court of public opinion. And when you talk about the reality of how modern jurors, regardless of who they are, they know someone, whether it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, who they worry might be victimized in this fashion, who they worry might have been, because this is another illustration of safety in numbers only when the dominoes begin to fall. Much like Harvey Weinstein and others at the beginning of the revival of the Me Too movement in 2017, only when others began coming forward were we exposed to what was really going on in this glamorized subculture. We'll call it that because there's willful blindness, no doubt, among some of his, we'll call them unindicted co-conspirators, that they saw it and did nothing. But anybody that might have witnessed what in retrospect they should have known or did know was just brutally illegal, exploitive conduct of minors. All of that is going to come to light in a court of law. And, as far as the antics behind bars right now, all that that's going to be is a distraction. We want jurors in that courtroom to hear from people that were there, who knew, who saw, and that's going to be very explosive. And the trial's coming up in May, so we're going to have to wait till then to see who does come forward. But yes, it is not going to be pretty when this all shakes out in a court of law.
Lynn Shaw, founder, executive director, Lynn's Warriors. Lynn, that is so brazen, if true, that Combs would actually turn on a red light visible from the outside of the bedroom to warn people he was having underage sex and to not come in. Just imagine it. I mean, I've got a teen girl and a teen boy who I believe anyway are innocents. Okay. Imagine sitting on a jury. I mean, it's making my blood boil just thinking about the brazen nature of warning everybody, don't come in. And they all just stood by and let it happen, Lynn.
Yeah. Everybody's blood should be boiling with this spoiled bad boy. I mean, after all, he called his company Bad Boy Entertainment. He told us who he was and is. And you know what? Distraction with these, I won't come out of my cell. I don't want the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I want to remind everybody, January is National Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. Let's really talk about that. Let's really talk about the kids. Let's really talk about the education there. Maybe if we can root out behind the scenes the minors, the women that were involved in this, and protect them so they will talk. We can have some lessons learned from this whole thing. This cannot continue.
Philip Pines, a former personal lackey for Sean Combs, claims in a lawsuit that he was tasked with setting up for Wild King nights at hotels, which involved bringing red lights, ice buckets, alcohol, marijuana joints, honey packs for male libido, baby oil, Astroglide, towels, illegal drugs, and powered sex toys to Combs' room for sometimes days-long escapades. Pines says he was expected to be on call for any additional needs during the exploits, and Combs even pressured him to join. Afterwards, Pines was charged with cleaning up the mess, deleting any incriminating photos or video from Combs' devices, and leaving hotel staff large tips to avoid paying extra bills for damages.
Oh my stars. I and my investigator, Ernest, would be all over this guy like white on rice. Did you hear that? Kayla Brantley, DailyMail.com, Philip Pines, who worked directly with Combs, claims in a lawsuit that he was tasked with setting up Wild King nights at hotels, bringing the red lights, that must be where this information is coming from about the red lights, ice buckets, alcohol, marijuana, honey packs for men to keep it, baby oil, Astroglide, towels, drugs, sex toys. He would be on call throughout for, this isn't the right word, sex parties. I don't think all the women thought it was a party. That would last for days. Then he would have to clean up and tip everybody at the hotel to avoid extra bills for all the damage. Oh, man. I'd put this guy under lock and key. I'd do whatever I had to do to get him on deposition. you name it, so he can't get out of his testimony or face charges of perjury.
This is completely in line with everything else we've been hearing, these very orchestrated parties that it took a lot of planning, a lot of baby oil, which, was found at his home, and it took a lot of people to really get this going. And then not only was it the prep, there were people during the parties that were on call, and then even the people after to make sure things were cleaned up, which makes everything look, again, like an orchestrated experience. And you have people getting Diddy's phone to delete anything incriminating. So again, with knowledge that this was an illegal act, or at least very damaging to his reputation, to delete any evidence. So again, this shows that this was not just Diddy acting alone, that it was an orchestrated process.
Well, there's more. All of these people now speaking out in various lawsuits and in these documentaries. And what about allegations that Combs would actually hire party sex trolls to scope out underage victims? Listen.
Sean Diddy Combs reportedly hired a team of men to patrol his parties for possible hookups for the mogul. A woman only identified as Lisa says she was separated from her music exec husband speaking with a friend at a 2004 Diddy White party when a man approached the women inviting them to hang out with Combs after the event. When the man said it would be intimate time, Lisa got a bad feeling and refused, but her friend did attend. Afterwards, she refused to speak about the experience, only saying she should not have gone.
Chris McDonough joining me, not only former homicide detective, 300 homicides under his belt, but former vice. Chris McDonough, these documentaries and these lawsuits are handing over witnesses to the feds on a silver platter on top of the Christmas tree, for Pete's sake. And what is boggling to me is that people stood by and let this happen. You've got party sex trolls going out and trying to rope in women to have intimate time with Sean Combs after the party in chief. You have a hitch person paying off hotel security and cleaning up and deleting incriminating cell video. I mean, you know what? As I've told the twins, you smell a joint, you leave. That's it. Why can people stand by and let this happen to victims?
That's a great question, Nancy. But what it's revealing is, as these individuals start to roll on him, that the signature that he utilized, i.e., power, control, that assertiveness. Remember, his goal through this whole situation has always been about leaving trauma and physical and emotional abuse to his victimology here. This guy could care less about women, about children. And as these individuals roll, like Dr. Hendricks said a little bit ago, he has to be very careful, because you start adding the dynamics of pedophilia into this play. There's going to be a lot of guys loading socks with, soap in the jail system that will give him something else to think about. So he's on very, very thin ice as this goes forward.
Karen Stark joining me, high-profile psychologist joining us from Manhattan today. Karen, I've put many a witness on the stand, and I just had to hold my nose. All the witnesses are not going to be nuns and priests and virgins, as you've heard me say a million times, but witnesses that were there, that stood by and did nothing when this was happening. Sometimes, Karen, you got to go to hell to get the witness to put the devil in jail, and that's what's happening right here.
Yeah, they're going to have to use people who participated, Nancy, but it really does show you the power that this guy had, his ability, the narcissism that he was able to break the law, to do things and get people to do these things for him. So many people were terrified of his power and what the repercussions would be. And so, yeah, they're going to have to get a lot of people who participated, but I get it, because he was so strong and powerful.
We wait as justice unfolds. But now we remember Deputy Sheriff Joshua Hamilton, Preble County Sheriff's, Ohio. Sheriff Hamilton killed in the line of duty, Navy Reserve, Army National Guard vet, survived by daughter Michaela and parents in mourning, John and Patty. American hero, Deputy Sheriff Joshua Hamilton. Thanks to all our guests for being with us, but especially to you for being with us. While many people might laugh and scoff at the Sean Combs prosecution and all of his antics, let's don't forget all the women and young girls that are alleged victims. Nancy Gray signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 to 9 o'clock sharp Eastern. And until then, good night, friend.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.